When it comes to Dark Souls 3 and its bosses, the game has its fair share of ups and downs. But to be honest, there are quite a few more good ones than most of Dark Souls 2 ever had. So there's going to be some positives and negatives about some of the bosses that I face. So this is going to be a fun case. Since Dark Souls 3 has some of my favorite bosses in the series, I can't wait to talk about the ones that I enjoyed fighting against. As for the ones I didn't, well, expect some garbage to be tossed here and there. So without further ado, let's get started with the third and final game of this ranking list. Now let's start with the first boss of Dark Souls 3, that being Ludix Gundyr, B+ in first boss material. This guy does not mess around. Compared to the first two games with their first bosses, this one stands out in the best way possible. Ludix will start off using that big spear of his for various attacks and moves he'll throw out. This boss kinda indicates that shields are kinda useless in this game. When it comes to shields in this game, they really don't protect you that much, and they will eat away your stamina if an enemy hits your shield. So the best method is to try to dodge his various attacks moves that he will throw out at you. But upon getting him to half health, he will turn into this giant freaky monstrosity. But honestly, this phase is the easiest to deal with. Since to deal with this phase, it shows one key mechanic that's kind of important for most bosses, being up close and personal. You have to get up close to this giant beast when it comes to giant monster bosses, so that way you don't have to worry about a lot of attacks hitting you and trying to do more damage against them. So overall, this fight is a pretty good introduction boss, and definitely the best out of the three introduction bosses. Nothing more, nothing less that I can expect, and his boss theme is quite good, so I'm going to give him a B tier. Up next on our list is Fort of the Boreal Valley. Despite having an easy attempt against this boss, this is another pretty solid fight. This big guy with a mace will pull no punches whatsoever. He will throw out his various attack moves, and he's one of those ice bosses that will inflict a status element called Frostbitten. But you'll rarely get afflicted by that unless you're standing up in his face, even though the gimmick of the fight is that you have to get up close and personal, like with Ludix Gundyr, which I think is a cool method to try to utilize. But in the second phase, he gets all hectic and intense with his fast charge moves and various attacks he'll try to throw out. And I just want to say, the music for this fight is so good. You'll hear it in so many memes, especially when phase 2 triggers. It's just that hilarious, but amazing at the same time. Goes to show that Dark Souls can be a meme. But overall, this boss fight is pretty good. Not amazing, still a bit on the easy side, but still enjoyable overall, so another B tier. Ooh, can we have another good tier boss? No. Sadly, that's not the case with this one. Curse Ride Greatwood is a boss that I didn't really enjoy fighting. Instead of being one of those bosses that you can just wail at, you have to wail at his pimples on his body, which is a nuisance to do since the pimples on his hands are annoying to hit due to his hands clipping through the damn floor, and ads, trash mobs, interfering in the fight, especially when they randomly show up, just making the fight miserable. And Greatwood's attacks aren't anything noteworthy. All he does is just rain down stuff and be a nuisance, and his spinny attacks are a bit on the janky side. Sometimes I don't get hit by anything, and other times I do. I do like that the floor collapses, triggering the second phase, killing all the enemies, and the hand just bursting out of his stomach is just pure nightmare fuel. But even with that, the boss fight's still kinda trash, to be honest. It's janky, not really that fun to do, and it's just a bit of a nuisance, especially with some janky hitboxes here and there. Just not really that enjoyable and fun of a fight, so D tier. Crystal Sage will be one of those bosses that you'll either forget or just have a hard time with. when it comes to wizard bosses, this one just stands out as the weakest. His attacks aren't anything too troublesome or annoying, especially with his magic missiles, but his constant teleporting is just a total waiting game, and it's annoying. He does send out clones in his second phase, and it's easy to tell the tale since the blue orbs are the clones and the purple one is the real one. But I will say his damage is kind of ridiculous and not really that fair, making it really annoying to try to avoid his various attack moves, especially the teleporting. The blue crystals on the ground don't even do any damage at all, so what's the point of them? It's really not that fun of a boss, just pretty bland and forgettable, but can be annoying to deal with due to the high damage he throws out, so I'm giving him a D tier. Well, we're having another D tier boss again, starting with Deacons of the Deep. Now, compared to most garbage enemy gauntlet fights, this one is the least bad, but we have skeleton lords, so that's not saying a lot. Honestly, this fight is kind of fun in a way, just mowing down all these geriatrics like it's Dynasty Warriors. Mowing down hordes of enemies is a bit fun, and the enemies themselves aren't really that hard to deal with. They can be a nuisance when they attack all at the same time, but thankfully, it's not to the point where it's too complicated or annoying. The gimmick here is that you have to damage the guy with the glowing red aura. It's kinda easy to tell which one has the glowing red aura around him, and once you do enough damage, the head honcho will show up and you have to damage him. The only times I was able to damage him is when he does his super charge-up attack that you have to interrupt, since there are so many enemies protecting him, and the blue priest will heal him in the process. But luckily you can interrupt their attacks and kill enough just to take out the main enemy in order to clear this fight. It's not terrible at the very least, it's a passable enemy gauntlet, but can I say it's fun, let alone a good fight? Not really, so D tier. Are we gonna get a good boss around here? Holy shit! Finally, we actually got a good boss fight, and one of my favorites in the game, the Abyss Watchers. You get greeted with these guys fighting each other until the one that came victorious turns to you and is ready to have a duel against you. In this fight, the Abyss Watchers function like a standard enemy, where he'll throw out various attack moves that you have the time on dodging. Luckily that he has low poise, you're able to try to get some hits in and interrupt some of his moves. Only to see that another Abyss Watcher joins in the fray and now you have to deal with two of them. Well, that's just great. Oh, there's a third one, and he's actually fighting with the other one. That makes it pretty fair. I do like that gimmick that the Abyss Watchers will turn against each other. It makes the fight more manageable instead of being a full-on gank fight that's unfair, which I appreciate the creativity, especially since you can separate the two and have them both focus on each other while you deal with the main one to progress on through the fight. But after you deal enough damage to the first one, you'll trigger the second phase where the blood of all the dead bodies will form into one, and thus revive the main Abyss Watcher, triggering the second phase. And in this phase, he'll throw out various flame combos that you have to time to avoid, and you have to dodge left or right. Sometimes dodging backwards doesn't really work, but considering the flame effects, you have to time when to strike, and thanks to his low poise, there are opportunities to attack. I love this boss battle, both from the design perspective, the way the fight plays out being a fair and challenging duel, the way it's presented in its gank battle, and that music. Easily one of my favorite boss themes in the entire game. It's just so damn beautiful! This fight deserves all the praise it can get. A tier. But sadly though, we have to get back to another disappointment. High Lord Wolnir. I will say the reveal of the fight is kinda cool. The fact that you get teleported to this weird place only to see a giant fucking skeleton just appear in front of you. No! We are not doing the meme! Anyways, let's actually get to the fight. It sucks. Wolnir can either be a boss that's a headache to fight, or one that's so easy that you're like, that was a boss battle? Gimmick here is that you have to attack his bracelets, while he's puking out mist that will do a lot of damage to you, summon skeletons, smacking you about, and pulling out a giant sword. Although for some reason he doesn't send out any skeletons or uses a giant sword in my attempt at fighting him, he just kind of slaps around and just sits there doing nothing. I feel like that if I attack the bracelet from the hand that only has one bracelet, it makes the fight easier to manage through, because if you leave that hand with the one bracelet alone and destroy the one with the two, he'll just hide it constantly in the fog and you'll die down there. But that's just how the boss fight functions, and it's really not that good. But I guess since I got an easier time with him, I'll have to give him a solid D tier. Up next on the list is a boss that many talk about to be decent but pretty forgettable, Old Demon King. And it's kind of a shame too, since I always find him to be one of the more underrated boss fights in the game. Sure, his moveset isn't anything exciting or noteworthy. I do like a couple explosions that he throws out, and he's basically an upgraded version of the bosses from the previous games that use hammers. So overall, I say he does a good job with his presentation, but then there's the other attacks he does. Most of his attacks consist of you just keeping distance away from him, such as the fiery circular rain that he does, and meteors raining down from the sky. Which is a bit of a nuisance, but hey, at least the boss is able to give you some distance, so that way you can see what he's going to do next before you just wail in at him. I will say the lore and the arena around him is actually kind of depressing. You see all the dead bodies of stray demons, Capra demons, and Taurus demons all around this arena. Meaning that this old fallen king lost all of his people, and he's the last of his kind. And what are you doing? Coming into his arena and putting him out of his misery, even when he's down on his knees. To be honest, I don't like that AoE explosion since it has a high chance of instant killing you, but I do like that it's a tragic fight to showcase during the end piece, that he's still holding on for dear life, but you're just putting him out of his misery because he's the last of his kind, which is really a shame. I just kind of wish the music was a bit more memorable and fitting for the battle, to be honest. But as it is, it's still a decent and underrated fight. Nothing more, nothing less. C tier. Up next has to be one of my favorite fights from both a design perspective and a boss fight perspective. Dancer of the Boreal Valley. The fact that you have this option to fight this lady early in the game just shows that if you are even ready to even face her in doing early Dancer. And that is those who have the bravery skills of doing it. But I will say, her design is so slick and one of my favorites in the entire game. It's just the ominous figure of seeing this mysterious character just showing up into this arena and you're ready to fight her. I'll admit the first phase isn't really that good. She spends most of her time just walking around stalking you like a predator stalking her prey. It's kinda awkward because you don't know when she's going to attack you, or she'll just continuously walking. But the second phase is what hits it for me. The second phase, she pulls out a second sword and throws out various graces of attack moves with her swords, and it's just kind of a spectacle to watch. Her attacks are pretty fair and straightforward for me, and one of the more fun fights I've dealt with, despite being very simple. It's just the elegant dance of timing when to strike and following up on her moves, making sure that you both are doing the dance correctly, or else you get punished for messing up. I really like this fight. It's just an overall spectacle for what it showcases, and it's just such a joy to go through, and definitely worth fighting. So this fight deserves an A tier for me. Up next on the list is Pontiff Sullivan. This guy is kind of a mixed bag for me. On his own, he's very simplistic in terms of his attacks and moves that he throws out. I will say, I hate the backhand slap that he does. It always catches me, it comes out way too quickly, and it's a nuisance to deal with. I don't really like that move. But most of his other moves is fairly simple, straightforward stuff. Sword charges, sword slashes, all that stuff, and he's wielding both a flame and dark sword in his hands. Interesting. But then there's the second phase where things become a bit more hectic and intense. In the second phase, he'll clone himself and have this hologramic clone to attack you. I'm mixed on this phase because the attacks are mostly out of sync, since the clone will attack you and then Sullivan will follow up. But sometimes they don't do the exact same attacks. They can just go out of sync, and it just makes it confusing on what to avoid and what to deal with. But thankfully the clone doesn't have a lot of health, so you can actually get rid of it before he summons another one. That's kind of the thing with this boss. It's good, but just needs a bit more flair to it, since he's pretty simple to talk about and nothing really exciting or elegant to really showcase. Sorry Sullivan, that is how it is. B tier. Up next on our list is Yorm the Giant. I don't like this boss. Yep, I am instantly throwing it out. I don't like Yorm the Giant. The deal with this boss is that you have to grab the Storm Ruler in order to do damage, because if you try to fight him normally, you're not doing anything to him. So you need to go grab the Storm Ruler by managing through your inventory, and it's just really not that fun, because you need this required item, and you need to grab it up where Yorm was last sitting, in the start of the frickin' arena. But once you get your hands on it, the fight's pretty much over, because with the Storm Ruler, it makes the fight trivial. Since this weapon does a lot of damage, and it staggers Yorm, but avoiding his attacks is a nuisance, and I swear it has some janky hitboxes. It's just really not that fun, especially knowing how the frickin' Storm Ruler controls. But once you have it in your hands and try to avoid his attacks, fight's a joke. It's super easy and underwhelming. And for someone who is cool looking, especially in the artworks, I wish a little bit more was done with him. Even without the Storm Ruler, his attacks are too basic and uninteresting to even talk about. D tier. Sorry Yorm, that's just how it is. Up next on our list is Aldrich, the Devourer of Gods. Despite not dying a whole lot to this boss, I don't really like Aldrich. My biggest issue with Aldrich is just how he functions. On his own in first phase, his attacks aren't really that bad. Just a couple magic missiles, an arrow barrage that only locks into one location where you go, and various other magic attacks. But my biggest annoyance with the fight is the constant teleporting. He only teleports on one side of the arena, and it's annoying to deal with, especially in phase 2, and during one of my attempts, he kept spamming it after only one attack. Whether it's using his weapon to attack you, or just using something else, I don't know, he just constantly does it and it drags the fight, especially since his teleporting could result into a lot of magic missiles coming after you and doing a lot of chip damage to your health. Especially his other attack moves, where he can even create flames. The homing lock on arrows will also chase after you. It's really not that fun. I find it more easier to attack his face, since it does more damage than attacking his backside. But that's just how it is, it's not really that fun of a boss. I will say, it is kind of horrifying to see that he has the body of Gwendolyn, and he even has the music motif of Gwendolyn/Moon Butterfly in this boss battle. Kinda cool, but fight itself, really not that good. It also annoys me that during my first attempt he instantly triggered phase 2 and I didn't even get him to half health. Yeah, this fight just kinda sucks. It's not really that good, but not completely terrible in my opinion. D tier. Up next on our list is Oceros, the Consumed King. Now, I really like the voice that showcases in the fight.
You ignorant slaves. Finally taken notice, have you?
Please read me to sleep. Anyways, this fight really showcases the whole story behind Oceros. You see him thinking he's holding his baby when the guy is delusional. He's not even holding anything, just a little bit of humanity left inside him. And during the first phase, he has a bit of a dialogue exchange while a baby is crying in the background while still maintaining that humanity left inside of him. But then, the second phase hits, where he loses all of his humanity and becomes a full beast. A monster, going all out for the kill, just charging at you and doing whatever he can to just fully kill you. It's insane to see this king broken down to this. But as for the fight, it's mostly average. The first phase is kinda boring, he just slams his staff around and swipes at you while exchanging out dialogue. Nothing too crazy, along with some ice breath coming out. But his second phase is where the real fun begins. He'll start throwing out various attack moves and trying to swipe at you with his tail. He's just going in full aggressive. But I will say, fuck the charge move. It comes out way too quickly, there's no wind up or animation towards it, and it's just complete BS. But his other moves are completely fine, especially since you can just camp behind him and you won't get hit by most of his attacks. Pretty simple and straightforward fight. Nothing more, nothing less. A solid C tier for me. Up next on our list is one of my favorites, Dragon Slayer armor. A full set of armor brought back to life thanks to these butterflies from a distance. And the armor itself is no pushover. This thing will throw out various attack moves, even bashing you and using its shield to hit you. It shows that it means business, and that shield, it definitely knows how to put up a punch, that's for damn sure, especially with his full attack moves that he throws out. It's all fast and reactive that you have to get behind him, time when to strike, and try not to hit that shield. I will say that as much as I like the fight, I don't like the second phase a little bit. It's because of background interference. I don't like that the butterflies can just attack you from the background, making it such an annoyance to get through. But most of his own moves are fine, nothing too noteworthy, and the music is pretty good. But most of the first phase, the second phase is kinda alright, but I wish the first phase stuck around a little bit longer. But overall, still a pretty darn good fight. Very simple, straightforward, nothing more, nothing less. I'm gonna give him a solid B tier. Oh great, a reskin! This is gonna be fun. Okay. Okay, I'm listening, Champion Gundyr. I see what you're going for. Yep, this is Ludic's Gundyr, but now in first phase, instead of having that monstrous form. This guy definitely knows how to kick, I'll say that much. This is basically Ludic's Gundyr, but more faster, aggressive, and tougher to handle. Champion Gundyr pulls no punches nor kicks that he'll throw out. It's all fast and aggressive stuff that he'll throw out. So you have to get the understanding of his moves and time when to strike, because this guy, he'll punish you heavily, and I learned that the hard way. We actually got a boss that was fairly challenging and tough to manage through. This fight definitely showed me that much, just how fast and aggressive he can throw out. I like this fight. To be honest, he would seem fitting in Bloodborne thanks to that game's more faster paced combat, but Champion Gundyr definitely does a good job in Dark Souls 3 and combines well with this game's combat system. So overall, a solid A tier for me. Up next is what's, in my opinion, the worst boss in Dark Souls 3, Ancient Wyvern. When you come across this giant dragon, your first instinct would be to attack it. Good luck with that, since you do nothing. So what do? You have to run around this entire level only to reach to a certain point while avoiding the enemies and the wyvern attacking you from a distance, and once you reach that certain one spot, you have to do a plunge attack to instant kill it. That's it. That's the fight. What? Why make this a boss? This could have been a level gimmick, but no, of course, it needed a health bar, it needed boss music. This is pointless. This boss didn't need to be a boss. It's a load of nothing but waste of time. I would have been excited to come into Archdragon Peak since I can say hello to Nameless King, only to see that, oh yeah, I gotta do Ancient Wyvern first, and it just ruins the excitement for this level, especially since you have to time when to strike at his head, because if you miss that opportunity, you're dead. Good luck with that. Just sucks. Just a waste of time. F tier. Oh boy, Nameless King, regarded by many to be the hardest boss in the entire game, and I had my experience with this boss. For starters, I don't like King of the Storms. The first phase is kind of a dull snore fest. Dealing with the giant chicken that just breathes fire while Nameless King attacks you on his bird is annoying to deal with, especially when it does AoEs constantly for me. It's not really that fun. Thankfully the bird doesn't have a lot of health, so it's manageable to get through. But then, the real fight begins. Nameless King himself. What makes this guy so hard? Everything! For starters, he throws out various attack moves. He will punish those that play aggressive. If you try to go in full aggressive, let alone spamming dodge rolls, he'll punish you. He'll fuck you over. He literally means business. He will literally hurt you no matter what. You have to time when to strike and when to avoid him, especially since you need a very fast weapon and utilize his weakness in order to even get opportunities to stagger him, let alone do some good damage against him. Since this fight is hard as hell to manage through. But upon my experience, I can't say that this boss is perfection as everyone makes it out to be. Don't get me wrong, the fight is good, but there are just a lot of times when Nameless King will constantly attack you. Even when you think you have the chance, he'll wind up another attack, making it frustrating on when to strike him. Sure, his run back isn't really that long, but dealing with King of the Storms again is just super tedious. Especially since it's annoying to try to get the practice out on the second phase of the fight. It's still a good boss fight, but its difficulty just kinda goes a bit too much for my likings, especially compared to most other bosses I've dealt with. Heck, even in DLC, since this is the only boss I died to the most out of everyone in the entire base game, even DLC. So, the fight is an A tier, but it's bottom A tier for me. If only Nameless King wasn't super aggressive and had a bit more windows of opportunities to attack him, I would say this fight is fantastic. But it's great. That's all I can really say. Might not be a popular opinion, but that's just my honest opinion. Up next is another one of my favorite fights in the game, and one that I wasn't expecting myself to enjoy, the Twin Princes. During the start of the fight, you fight the Elder Prince, Lothian, and this guy does not pull any punches. He will throw out his various attack moves that he'll throw out, and the teleporting, that will definitely throw you off, but it makes sense since he's kinda crippled in a way, so of course the teleporting is gonna be something that will throw you off, but something that I really appreciate since it requires that more timing on when to strike and when to avoid his attacks, especially his charged up sword attack that he does. So the first phase is definitely a great start to this fight, but upon doing enough damage and beating him, the younger brother, Roderick, will join in the fray. And this is where things got more insane. A lot of magic missiles come out, and Roderick, despite the fight not really being much of a duo, he does throw out some various attacks, such as a magic missile, and you have to kill him in order to end the fight, because if he's still alive, he'll revive his dead brother back, no matter how many times you bring down Lorthian. And this fight just goes all out crazy and hectic. I really enjoyed this boss fight so much, and I love the fact that if you kill Roderick, Lorthian will also die despite having some health left. It really goes to show that, yeah, that's what you just gotta do. And it's such a good fight. Really enjoyable. One that I didn't even think was gonna be a bit more on the easy side. And also, the music. As much as I love Abyss Watchers, this one is also fantastic. Why did they go all out for a bunch of crippled princes? This fight is so good, so underrated. I loved it so much. A tier. Despite only fighting the final boss last in the base game, I will say that the final fight against Soul of Cinder is a fantastic final boss. This is the final opponent you confront. You see him sitting at the bonfire just like a real player, and you'll notice that he's literally the chosen undead from the first game, the one who kindled the first flame at the end of the first game after defeating Gwen. And seeing that this is the chosen undead in all of his former glory, even down to the weapon that he uses in the fight, which is RNG depending on what weapons you have to deal with during this phase of the battle. He'll start off pretty simple with his standard sword swipes that he'll throw in, but he'll switch other weapons, such as magic usage, a very long sword for pokey pokes, other magic usage attacks. I don't really like the one where he pulls out this weird sickle weapon, because he throws out two fast combos. It's dependent on RNG whether this first phase will be manageable or annoying to deal with. But when you get the one where he shoots out magic, it's either easy or annoying to deal with. But then there's the second phase, where you see some resemblance. Something changes. The music goes from plin plon plon, and he uses a weapon and attack moves similar to a certain other boss. Yes, Gwen. That's what he's using. Gwen's soul is still alive. It's still inside that body, taking control in the second phase. And this phase is much more fairer than Gwen from the first game. Despite having the same attacks, it's all reactive and fast enough for you to avoid and understand. All down to his moves such as kicks, a grab move, even down to his combos. You can see it all there. And the music for the fight is fantastic. Easily one of my favorite final boss themes I've listened to in the whole entire series. This fight is so good. If only the first phase wasn't RNG dependent, I would say this is one of the best final bosses in the series. Don't get me wrong, it still is, but it's mostly the second phase that showcases it. The whole story and showcase of this boss just screams excitement. A perfect conclusion to this trilogy. A tier. Alright, now let's get into DLC. I did this first before doing the final boss, and first up on our list is lame. The champion Gravetender himself. You start fighting this boring NPC surrounded by 3 wolves. Cringe. This guy kinda sucks. He just spends most of his fight keeping his shield up and being a nuisance. and it's really not that fun. I don't like NPC fights because they have too much high infinite stamina, constantly spamming attack moves. It's just a nuisance, and you kind of have to kill him quickly before the wolf shows up and things start going from okay to awful. But once the tender is dead, then you deal with the wolf. The wolf itself is actually kind of fun and the more enjoyable part of the fight, due to his gracious moves of dashing across and just trying to hit you and bite you. Sure, he's no Sith, no giant sword involved, but it's definitely a hectic and frantic fight that he'll throw out, and he does have an ice breath that kind of doesn't really do a whole lot for him, to be honest. So yeah, not a great start to this DLC, since the first half is shit and the second half is good. But that's just kind of a shame, really, because I wanted to like this boss, but boring NPC had to ruin it, so you can screw yourself, Brain Tender. C tier. Oh boy, the final boss of the first DLC. Yes, there's only 2 bosses in this DLC, and that is Sister Freedy. Upon entering this boss battle, I heard stories that many consider to be the hardest boss in the whole entire game, compared to at least most bosses in the base game, and I was fully ready. So how did my experience go? Well, for phase 1, you start fighting the sister herself, and she's not really that bad, just a couple sight throws that she'll try to combo you and attack you. Thankfully, she has low poise, so you can easily stagger her and interrupt her attacks. She does do the invisible attack move, where she'll either jump or dash to the left, and you have to try to follow on where she's at, depending on the snow effects. If you see the snow fly upwards, she's doing the jump attack, which means she's behind you. If the snow flings to the left, then yeah, she just moved to the left. And you have to try to find her, or else she'll just attack you with an ambush. But the first phase isn't really that bad, pretty manageable. But upon beating Freedy, you'd think that would be over. But to Father Arendel's horror, he sees that his sister is dead, and what does he do? Frickin' revives her back with fire. Because that's the logic of Dark Souls, apparently, and now you have to fight them too. Well, this is great, but the second phase is a bit easier than the first one. You just have to focus on Arendelle, while Sister Freedy will try to attack you with the ice moves. She's a bit annoying since the ice can throw you off while you're trying to fight the big guy, but luckily she's a bit more on the passive side, and thankfully they both share the same health bar, so you don't have to worry about whittling one down and then focus on the other, unlike with most other bosses. Similar case like Dark Lurker, for example, being the sharing same health bar trope. But with this fight, if you just try to keep your distance on the big guy and keep attacking him when you can, it's manageable. So the second phase isn't really that bad. Bit challenging, but still manageable, and thus, that's it for the fight. Yep, there is a third phase! You rarely see that in any freaking Souls game where a boss has a third phase. And Freedy goes full out with her black flames. Coolest looking flame effects, various attack moves she'll throw out, super aggressive. This boss feels like she belongs in Bloodborne. But despite all of that, I love this phase. I really enjoyed this fight for what it had to offer, because at the very least, unlike with Nameless King, you can actually stagger Freedy due to her low poise, and you have opportunities of when to strike, making the fight challenging, but at the very least, fair and manageable to go through. In fact, you wanna know how many attempts it took me to beat Freedy? 3 tries. I'm not kidding. 3 tries just to beat this fight. And I was fully prepared to suffer. But this fight is so good and so enjoyable. I really like this one. And at the very least, you get to see me just slaying her at low health. So I'm giving this fight a solid A tier. Fantastic boss battle. So sit back and watch a bit of the footage while I prepare the next choice. Oh boy, the Demon Princess. Upon entering this arena, you get greeted with 2 demons, Demon in Pain and Demon from Below. These 2 are just sitting down there based on the lore behind them, which is quite a tragic fate. And you get greeted with 2 very aggressive and powerful beasts that you have to face. So, what is there to say about this boss? Well, one demon will try to attack you and be all aggressive, while the other one kind of sits in the back progging toxic. Yay. But at the very least, it's avoidable to see, and at least this duo fight is actually pretty fair, since the demons will take turns on attacking you and when to strike at you. So if you try to focus on the one that's aggressive towards you and ignore the other one until they switch, then you have the opportunities of damaging one. So overall, I say this phase is a bit more fairer than Ornstein and Smo and the Throne duo combined, since it's a duo fight that's actually very enjoyable and very good. But at the very least, which demon you kill last will depend on which phase you're gonna deal with. If you kill Demon in Pain, that's the hardest one, since you gotta deal with so many frickin' fireballs and attacks that he'll throw out towards you. But if you kill Demon from Below last, he'll throw out a laser that's just free opportunities to damage him. But I always recommend going for that one, since you have various attack moves to avoid, and just the lasers itself can give you opportunities to get in a lot of good hits. These guys are hard to deal with, and I do like that you can do visceral attacks if you keep applying the pressure of hitting them. At the very least, this fight is tough, but fair for me. If you just avoid their attacks and camp behind their sides, you won't get hit by their various moves, and you have opportunities of when to strike and to attack. This fight is intense and hectic as hell, but man, do I love this boss. It's easily one of my favorites in the whole entire game, just due to the intensity alone. It just makes this exhilarating fight exciting for me to go through, and I have to give the game credit for that. Solid A tier again. Next up on the list is one boss that's easily my most favorite in the entire DLC, that being Dark Eater Midir. This giant dragon behemoth is so good, much better than Calmate and Sith combined. Out of all the dragon fights, this one easily stands out in the best ways possible. You'd think with just like all the other dragon fights you could just attack his hind legs or his tail, but no, you have to go straight for his face since it does more damage there. But thankfully, the attacks Midir does is actually fair, reactive, and straightforward for you to understand, since every single hit I take feels like it's my fault, no cheap bullshit or annoying hitboxes to get in the way. Every attack does involve around his face, but luckily there are opportunities when to strike and when to avoid his slash attacks, his tail swipes, his fire AoEs, barrages of frickin' lasers. He throws out everything that really makes him stand out, and I love this fight for what it offers. The second phase isn't as impressive since he does retain all of his attacks as in phase 1, with a couple of projectile attacks, constant charges, and also having an AoE explosion which surprisingly doesn't have that big of an explosion unlike most other bosses. But overall, I say that this fight is amazing, and for an optional boss, they didn't need to go all out. Even the music, mostly phase 1, especially these bits right here that are my favorite part about the soundtrack. This fight deserves an S tier for me. It is really that good, and I recommend going after him. One of the more underrated boss fights in my opinion. But sadly though, the positivity has to end since I have to talk about the worst boss in the entire DLC. Half-Light Spear of the Church. I hate this boss. Apparently, FromSoft decided to take notes from Demon Souls and bring back an NPC boss where a playable person can actually be the boss. But they failed to understand what made Old Monk kinda work. In fact, they barely even improved on it. You have to listen to this frickin' giant guy talk nonsense, take care of a couple painting guardians, and then fight Half-Light himself. I don't like NPC bosses, but this one is awful for many cases, especially since he can parry off your attacks, he's freaking annoying to deal with in terms of his fast attack moves. It's just really not that fun and enjoyable. Heck, there are so many opportunities where I could hit him, but he just instantly counteracts. Even worse, when I rewatch my footage, one of the painting guardians that was still in the battlefield healed him! As if he needs a fucking healing buddy. This fight is not fun, it's annoying, especially with his goofy little blasters that do chip damage. I don't see any excitement out of this boss, and it's so annoying that this fight is mandatory. I have to get through this before I can even fight a good boss afterwards. So yeah, Half-Light can kiss my ass. This Kylo Ren reject just... I don't like him. Just this stupid loser out of my face. F tier. Oh boy, Slave Knight Gale. This is the final boss of the Ringed City DLC. This is what we all have been waiting for. I've heard many good stories about Gale being the best boss in the entire series, nay, the entire trilogy. And I had my experience with him. First off, the atmosphere. We're literally fighting what is essentially the end of the world. All nothing but ash. And we're two nobodies fighting for nothing. I'm here for his soul, and he's here for my dark soul for his lady's painting. So in this fight, it's definitely something special. Gale starts off pretty aggressive with his sword charges and swings that require precise dodges for you to avoid, especially since he's going all out, since he's basically lost his mind. But overall, it's definitely a challenging start, and it's pretty cool that you get to see him running towards you upon redoing the fight instead of making a long reversal to even get to him. Which is one thing I really appreciate what they did with Gale. But that's only the first phase, because things get even more crazier in the next phases. In phase 2, it gets so crazy that even his freaking cape does damage to you. So... yeah, you're gonna have to dodge at specific spots in order to avoid getting hit by his cape. Heck, he even throws out his frickin' crossbow just to barrage you with arrows because why not? He's desperate and wanting to kill you, so he's gonna do whatever he can, but all of his attacks are pretty fair and straightforward for you to avoid. With correct dodges and perfect placement, you'll be able to avoid getting hit by his cape, nay his sword as well. But then there's the final part of the fight where he goes out all crazy with massive explosions, lightning striking you because why not? It's just an insane and hectic final fight that definitely shows that it's the best final boss I've ever seen. just all the crazy moves Gale does just to get your Dark Soul. I love every ounce of this fight, and I can easily say that this is one of the best final bosses I've faced, and I can definitely see why he's such a fan favorite. This fight just goes in all out, it's so insane. But honestly, there are a couple bosses I do prefer over Gale in terms of the showcases like Demon Prince or Midir. But Gale? Oh, he's definitely one amazing boss, I'll give him that. One tough son of a bitch to deal with, so he deserves the S tier placement as well. Easily the best fight to go through and definitely worth the hassle. That's my official tier list. I hope you all like it, because I'm done. That's it for Dark Souls for now. I doubt I'll cover games like Bloodborne or frickin' Demon Souls, anything. Well, it was nice to get back into the countdown list, so I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for listening and sticking around for me. And here's hoping to do more countdowns in the future. So, until next time.